lost a pretty important person this past Friday. She's referred to a lot by her initials, RBG, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And a lot of people are sad about it. I mean, there's so many emotions about it. I mean, of course, when anyone dies or is finished with this life here, the people that are here mourn their loss so much. And what I like to do as a sort of therapy, you know, whether it be a pet or a grandparent or even a person I don't know that I'm sad is gone from this world now, I like to draw them. A few things to just know about her is that she was born in Brooklyn, New York. Her mother never went to college. Her mother actually worked in a factory so her mother could send her brother to college. Her mother's brother. Her mother could send her brother to college, if you can believe it or not. And that made a big impression on Ruth, RBG. When I was a kid, she was the first woman to be offered tenure to teach law at the university, and I think it was Columbia University, teacher, which means that she was given a permanent position with the college. President Carter appointed her to the U.S. Court of Appeals. Eventually, President Clinton appointed her to the U.S. Supreme Court. Oh, another thing about her was that when she was in college, in law school, and I think it was in law school, she was only one of 8 women out of 500 students. The rest were all men in school at the same time. A lot of times you'll hear I dissent or notorious. Those two, notorious being an adjective describing RBG. I dissent came up when she was debating the Al Gore and George Bush election. And what basically I dissent means is that I disagree with what the majority are saying right now. And she was known to do that. She was known to disagree with the majority. Sometimes it's easier to agree just because most people agree. You know, another thing about her is she was so articulate and feisty, a little feisty, but she also used restraint. She's already gone down in history, and she will continue to go down in history. So you will need, you know, as large as you possibly can print out on your computer, any portrait. Doesn't have to be RBG, it can be anyone, but there's so many to choose from. Make sure you choose one that you like, that you want to replicate. So you'll need a black and white printed copy of the portrait, and then you'll need a paper that's approximately the same size. You'll need 4 small strips of paper like this, a ruler, a Sharpie, and a pencil. This is a crooked line, and it's best if I have it straight. If you want to be set up for success in the best way possible, it is the best to make sure you get pretty straight and even lines. So instead of lining this up with the edge here, I'm lining this up with the border of the portrait, if you can see that. And then my first line is going to be here. I'll line this up again with this. You can see that my lighting is a little off than what it is usually. It's because Peter is using all my lighting to do distance learning in the basement. He has taken all of my lighting out of the studio, so all I have to work with is the sunlight coming through my studio window. We've done this method in the classroom, and you can see how students have made portraits of other people using this method. I just want to make sure that you see that these are imperfect lines still. That's just fine. It's okay. All right, and then what you're going to do is you're going to make, I'm going to come in a little bit to adjust for the border. Actually, this is what I'm going to do. This will be the actual size. Now I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to make a grid going across. Exactly what I did before, but I'm doing it with pencil this time. A lot of you are familiar with Frank at Mia. Look, giant portrait. Frank is actually a painting, but is painted in this manner. Is whether Chuck Close draws, or the artist, or whether he paints, he uses the grid method. So he does this every time. He takes a photo or a picture and he sections it out. His can be small, but then he'll have a giant piece, and he'll make a giant grid and replicate each square inside the grid. Very imperfect, but good enough. And this is hard to see, which is totally fine. I'm just going to, her hair is pulled back in this portrait, so I'm just going to do that. So then what you want to do is you want to tell your brain to forget what you're drawing. That 2 squares in, we have this section here. So you cover up all the other squares, 2 squares in, and you do this section right here. It's hard to see anything else, so that's all I'm going to do. And then you move over to this section. And I can actually see hair there. And then you go to this section, and it's really important to cover the other pieces because your brain wants to tell you that it's one way. See how it finishes before the line there? Your brain wants to tell you that it's one way, but you actually just want to copy exactly what you see. I'm going to go down to this. I'm going from left to right and top to bottom. So now I'm going down to this section, and I see that this line goes down to here, and I see this line here, and some things like that. And some of you might look at this section and see, like, I don't see anything in here. That's fine. You can leave it empty. This is when I will finally need a 4th piece. But I see some lines right here. You know, another thing about this method is it can seem like it takes a long time, and we have a tendency to want to see the finished product and give up and hurry. But I promise you, this method is rewarding if you just go slow. So if you feel like you want to hurry through it, stop. and come back to it later. You can always come back to it. I feel like I can kind of see like a little something right there. And there's a little bit of a little bit of like shadows or something right there too. Okay, left to right again. Top to bottom. This is when we start getting towards the face. This is when your brain wants to do something other than, because it thinks it should look a certain way. But what you do is you say, this isn't an ear and this isn't an eye. These are just lines, and I'm just going to do the lines. I know that we normally in the classroom don't have erasers, but with this, you for sure feel to erase, because I could tell my brain was telling me that's an eye. I need to make that look like an eye, but it doesn't look like an eye actually. I like art that is asymmetrical or out of proportion, but a lot of people like symmetrical art. They like symmetrical art and they like things in proportion. And I don't, it depends what kind of artist you are. This obviously is art that allows for you to have much more success with proportion and composition, and have it be more realistic. Like if your parents want to try this with you, this would be a really fun one to try. Ooh, now we get to the lacy collar that she's known for these. when you're finished with your portrait, you can take your eraser, which you do actually need to have for this exercise, and you can erase all of the grid part then. And that's why when you do the grid initially, you want to make sure that you do it lightly. So you can see when you erase the grid, can you see where I have neglected the chin somewhere? I overlooked the chin, and I'm going to go back and do the chin right here. And it doesn't even curve that much. And I actually even see now this, I feel like I missed this part, but our brain is so tricky. It tries to tell us that we see things or we don't see things. I also see that her hairline goes to the ear there. Do you see that? So I can fix that too. See this? So you'll make little adjustments like that. Isn't that fun? Anything, it's an activity in actually drawing what you see, the lines that you see, not what you think you see, but the lines that you see. That anything can just be broken up into lines or shapes and be drawn. But that's all we did. We just separated this into lines and shapes. And we're able to draw RBG. Ta-da!